You look so beautiful.
Oh, Lord. Okay, come on, record. Okay, here we go. Hey everyone, happy Friday. I am so excited that we are finally able to connect with Nicola Vitkovich to talk to her about tapping for painful emotions. Nicola is a good friend of mine, and I have seen her working some miracles with some people. So I know that what she does is very timely and important for our group. So welcome, Nicola.
Hey,
Thank
Karen.
you
Thank you
for
so
being
much for
here.
having me.
I really appreciate it. I'm I know that you recently had a loss in your family, and it's been hard for you to, and this is what we all go through. It's such an example of what we go through, which is that we think we've got it all handled and then we don't. And you can never tell when that feeling is going to strike you, where you're feeling bad. So I'm really sorry for your loss, and I'm really grateful that you're here.
I'm happy to be here.
So we've touched a little bit in our group before one time about some EFT tapping, but
Hmm.
tell me, the name of your company is Faster Changes with Nicola, and just tell me a little bit about what you do.
So I work one-on-one mostly with people. Sometimes I do some monthly webinars for emotional eating, but I work one-on-one with people and I help them release stuck emotions, essentially, stuck states. What I do is I'll do a detailed intake and I'll find out how they're creating it, because every emotional stew we get into inside is actually a creation. We have to say the right things to ourselves, see the right images, just to feel the right feelings. And once I know how people are creating it, I can help them apply the tapping process that I do and actually get those emotions to flow, to move, and to update so that they can interact with whatever those things were that they were doing inside in a new way. So
Okay.
yeah, there's
So
some
how do they
complicated.
create it? How do you, how would you say if you're feeling bad,
Yeah,
you're basically creating that feeling from connecting with a certain emotion that you have?
it could be connecting to an image or an emotion or something you're telling yourself. So um, I'll go to it was my mother-in-law that passed, and it was, so it was actually, she was 93 and she went peacefully in her sleep, and um, she wasn't sick. So there's a lot to be grateful for there, right? And but I'll go to the loss of my cat, which was harder for me to, there was harder for there to be some gratitude in that loss, right? So when my cat passed a couple of years ago, she had cancer and I didn't know it. Like I thought she had a bladder infection, right? And what I was doing inside was I kept seeing the image of her sick and weak, right? I kept calling up that image instead of the 17 years of playing with her, right? You know, so there's things inside of us that they're imprints, right? The term is an imprint. And a really quick example of an imprint is for you to think of a dog. Like literally, when I say the word dog, what do you do in your mind?
Yeah, I think of my dog and how much I love him and how he makes me calm and feel good.
And that's literally how fast it happens at the unconscious level. When we think of something, we go to our imprint. And with a loss, what happens is typically our imprint gets changed to the traumatic events around the loss, and we lose access to all the happy experiences and memories. And so it literally changes our relationship with that person, place, thing, pet, any of it. And with the tapping process, I can help people go in and what's your imprint now, right? And change it to the better imprint. Because if you've got a bad imprint, like with my cat Trinity, it was just all the sickness. And I mean, it went on for only 1 or 2 months. 1 or 2 months, I'm attributing everything based on that instead of 17 years of good memories. So I had to go in and tap and release those images, the guilt that I was creating inside, because I'm not Superwoman. I didn't have X-ray vision. I didn't know, and all these silly things that I was telling myself. And so that's kind of what I help people do is, what's that new imprint? How are you creating it? What are you telling yourself? And I do it with myself, obviously, too. And I apply tapping to it and let go of the bad, the trauma, the negative, and re-access all the good, because the good stuff's still there. You got it behind the bad stuff, so to
Right.
speak.
I'm trying to always say, how you want to define the rest of your life. Do you want it to be by the loss of your
Right.
loved one or by the life of your loved one? And so that sounds exactly like what you're talking about.
Yeah, it really is. We can honor the life of a person or a pet by focusing on the good. But if all we do is focus on the loss and the pain, we're almost dishonoring everything else,
Right.
right?
And I feel like, what we talk about is that there is in the beginning for us losing a child, there is a feeling of, it's almost like you're powerless to change those thoughts. There is a point where you kind of just have to allow it. But I think we all find our way, or many of us find our way over a long period of time to replacing the bad ending with the beautiful amount of time that we had,
Right.
loving them and their lives and stuff. So this sounds like, a way to maybe like jar it and maybe like make a faster change. Is that why you called your company Faster Changes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So grief is natural, right? It is a completely natural process to feel that loss. But sometimes we get stuck in it and we're not able to feel good feelings again, or we feel guilty feeling good, right? And so then grief is taking on a different role. It's almost it's just not updating, or it's not processing, it's not moving. So that's where we come in with the tapping process to just get it flowing again, get the emotions moving, releasing those negative perceptions that we're anchored to, and getting back to feeling good again.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of like a confusing situation that we find ourselves in the thing that you talked about feeling good again, and like having some problems with that,
Right,
like it
right.
just doesn't almost feel right to want to feel good.
And
So this could also be a way to help with that. Hmm?
so there's a couple of things there. It is a way to help with that. Very often what happens is, in our minds, we all learn to grieve somehow. And that sounds strange, but our examples of what grief is came from our families, how we would see others grieve. My husband, his grief process is very different. It seems unemotional. I know there's emotions in there. His family's had much loss over generations, massive loss. And their way of interacting it was just to kind of shut off from that and not talk about any of it, as if it didn't happen, didn't exist. It was just shut down. In my family, grief was very big and loud, and there was screaming, and there was locking yourself in rooms for days on end, wailing. And so I don't do that. Luckily, I've learned better ways to grieve. But what I've noticed is that often we equate how much we grieve with how much we loved something. And that's actually not, it's a complex equivalence we've created in our mind, but it's not true. How much you grieve does not equate to how much you've loved anyone. You can celebrate their life and feel amazing for the time you've had with them, and feel good when you think of them, and still love them so, so, so very much.
Right. And also just the outward grieving versus the inward grieving too, just the fact that you're doing it on the inside or the outside, it doesn't have an effect on how much you loved them.
No, it doesn't.
Right. Um, so interesting that you said that about your husband, because I feel like many of the moms that come in my path, in my group, um, this is their situation. And it's, I mean, it really is a difference between men and women a lot of times, where they just
Yeah.
look at how their husband is grieving, and they're frustrated with that, and then the husband is frustrated with you know the more showing of emotion. And
Right.
so this is where you have to say, well, I have to work on myself, and he has to work on himself. I can't
Yep.
control how other people grieve. And so again, coming back to what you do, this points you back towards working on yourself,
Yes.
changing your mind and your thoughts.
Yeah, that's true.
So I know you're going to talk a little bit about how to actually tap, but I'm just curious before we go there. You said you do this on yourself. So,
Hmm.
I mean, I think initially, people will learn from you, and they could actually work with you to do what we're going to try to do. But do you get to the point where you just start working on tapping yourself in part of your life?
I tap every day,
Okay.
always, every single day. I have very specific things that I do that simply help me navigate what goes on in life, right? There's tapping that I do that just works on my nervous system. I'm not necessarily creating change with an emotion, thought, belief, or image that I'm seeing. I just do the mechanical exercise of tapping. It's like, taking a walk every day kind of thing. Like I just do this tapping that I call background tapping. And it's doing things with my nervous system. And what I have learned, how it was explained to me, is that it creates a bigger container for stress. So if you come to this technique and you can handle, like you've got this shot glass of how much stress you can handle before you feel horrible, right? You do this tapping process that I do every day, and it's called set tapping. Simple energy techniques tapping, created by Steve Wells and Dr. David Lake. Now you apply that process, and then in a couple of weeks, your container for stress literally changes, right? The amount of stress you can manage without having that overflow changes. It's bigger. And then you keep doing it and it gets even bigger, right? That shot glass is like a bucket over time. So you are able to just respond differently to the things that happen in life. And that's why I do it every day. I spend almost an hour doing it, but I don't sit down and do it for an hour. It's 5 minutes here, it's 5 minutes there. I'm on a video chat with someone, I'll be doing it. I'm watching TV, I'll be doing it. If I'm on the phone, I'll be doing it. When I take a walk, I do it, right? And it's super easy. And I could show you now if you want. Can you
Okay.
see me? Can you see my hands?
Yes.
Okay. So you take two fingers and you're going to tap on the bottom inside part of your fingernail, right?
Does it matter which hand or which
Nope.
side or any of that?
Doesn't matter which hand at all. So I'm
Okay.
lefty, so I start with my left hand. So I'm just tapping on if you were looking at your thumb, it would be the bottom inside, the bottom aspect closest to the fingers, right?
Okay.
And then you're going to do the same on the fingernails. So it's that bottom inside part of the fingernails and the bottom, which probably looks like the top because my hand's upside down, but
Good
you're just
fingernails,
tapping.
girl. I wasn't camera ready with my fingers here.
That's funny. So that's just the one way, right? You're just tapping
Okay.
on the
So
side of the
just your
fingernail,
hands.
basically. Yep. Right. Now, sometimes we need a hand free, right? So you can actually do it with one hand. And this is the way I prefer to do it. I do it with
Okay.
one hand. So my index finger is reaching across my thumb and tapping on that part of the fingernail.
Okay.
And then my thumb will reach over and just tap on the side of my fingernail.
Okay.
All right. And you can do it like a ladder. You can go up and down. And there. You could just jump. Doesn't matter.
So this is
Okay.
what you're talking about, the set tapping, where
This is set tapping. Yeah.
you're not sitting there making an intention or saying anything. It's basically like
It's a
a relaxation.
physical. Yeah,
feeling.
exactly. It can bring your mind back to the present moment. It will help you relax. One of the first things I'll notice is it's like within like 5 or 7 taps practically. I haven't even moved fingers. I'll just find myself taking a sigh. I know it's already releasing, like I'm already dumping stress, which is wonderful. It's
Yeah.
just working with the energy meridians of the body. So tapping is also known as, needleless acupuncture, or, right, acupressure. So it's that quick, it's that powerful. So this is the first thing I love to teach people to tap, because you're not you don't need words, because that's one of the big impediments for people when they're learning to tap. Well, I don't know what to say, right?
Right.
Well, you don't have to say anything. You can just tap.
Well, and like you said you do it when you're on a video chat or when you're
Yeah.
watching TV. So it's not like
Yep.
you're sitting there weirdly talking to yourself all the time.
Right.
Like this is a way to get the result without doing the more complicated, like I call it, like a more complicated version of tapping,
Right.
or
And we're
more
going to get into a little more
involved.
complicated version too.
Yeah.
So,
So that's a quick and easy way to do it.
yep. And that is, like I said, I recommend everyone does that. It's the first thing I like to teach, because it gets rid of the whole I don't know what to say, or and you can't do it wrong. You just tap. You're just tapping. That's it. Make it a
That's
habit.
I've
And
never
it's
never heard of that. That's amazing.
yeah, I've been doing this since 2015, and gosh, it helps so much. Like I will literally realize I'm stressed because I've started tapping. Like I don't notice the stress first. I notice the tapping because it's that ingrained for me. I'll be like, oh, I'm tapping. I must have, oh yeah, I was just thinking that. Okay. All right, it's working. So
Okay. All
it's
right.
fantastic.
Okay, before you talk about the other one, let me just quickly let you know of another thing that's happening with many of my moms, which is emotional eating. And you mentioned your webinar. So this is a big deal. And while, you know, at the surface, it's, you gaining and losing weight in the idea of losing a child, like it doesn't seem that important. But the journey that many of us go on is, at first we can't eat a thing, can't eat.
Right.
And then we figure it out that, eating our comfort foods, our favorite things, just, it almost numbs us. It gives us a break
Mm-hmm.
from the bad feelings. And so we, sometimes we turn and we say, well, I deserve it. I've been through so much. I deserve to eat this cake,
Mm-hmm.
or just, unknowingly eating.
Yeah.
So although it doesn't seem on the surface like that would be something I would want to talk to you about for these moms, it is definitely something that affects us. And, when you gain weight on top of feeling so bad, it's just more bad feelings about yourself,
It is.
so, and not to say like you have to be skinny to be happy, but you have to be at peace with yourself, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
And so is that a different thing that you do when you're talking about eating?
It is a different thing that I do. So I, I used to be a personal trainer. That's almost what brought me to tapping. Is I was a personal trainer for 15 years, and my clients would do so well with their programs. Like they'd come in, they'd show up, they'd be doing their exercises, they'd be following an eating a way of eating that supported their health. I don't believe in diets. I just believe in eating a healthy diet kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And all then something would happen in life, and they would crash and burn. They'd start emotional eating. They'd stop showing up for workouts, and eventually they'd drop off. So I would just get so frustrated at watching them go from just almost having what they want to sabotaging what they want. And I always wondered, like, what how can I help them more? And then I was having trouble with panic attacks and anxiety. So I found emotional freedom technique back in 2010. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. This helps me so much. And then I just gradually made the change from personal training to coaching, because it's so much more effective to help people's minds. And because I've had that background, I have a soft spot for the emotional eating thing and the weight
Yeah.
loss thing and helping people. So I created this monthly webinar. Obviously it costs a fair amount to work one-on-one with me, right? But on the webinar, I have it where it's super inexpensive and everyone can do it regularly. It's like $25 a month. It's one webinar. I work on one person for one aspect of emotional eating, and we create what's called borrowing benefits. People attend, they just tap along and say what I say, and they change. And that's one of the powerful things about EFT. You do the tapping process while someone else is being coached, and your mind gives it meaning. Just like when I said dog, you went to your dog. When I say sadness, you go to your sadness. When I say, reward, you go to how you want a reward and what it means to you. So that process ends up becoming so simple, because you just tap and say what I say, and stuff changes for you.
That's amazing. So do people really get results from that? I mean,
absolutely. I've been doing this for 3 years, this program alone, and people keep coming back. I have people who've been in it the entire 3 years and still get so much out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's just fascinating to me that, you could be watching someone else do it and that it would still work.
Well, you're not just watching them. You're literally doing the mechanical process of tapping, and you're repeating the words that I say.
Okay.
And your mind gives it meaning. The tapping process does the releasing, and it just works.
Okay. So before we disconnect with you, I want to make sure that we know every way that people can get in touch with you and connect with you, and either maybe learn about that webinar or other ways to work with you. But I know, okay, you're going to teach us some other kind of tapping. So what's this one?
I want to teach you. The other one is called Faster EFT.
Okay.
And now with this one, how I like to teach new people to work with it is to simply use numbers in their mind, right? So if you're thinking about something that's bothering you, you're going to just notice what it is. Now, it could be an image that you're seeing. It could be something you're saying to yourself, or a feeling in your body. And you simply aim at it by asking yourself, how strong is it?
Okay.
And then from there, I like to just work with the number and not kind of go back to the thing, because I found that people can get lost in their stuff. But if you just trust the number that your mind gives you, you'll notice that things are changing.
So don't overthink the number.
Yeah, don't overthink the number. You just trust your first answer. So like we could do this in a very real way with you on something for you.
Okay.
To use it as a demonstration. So like if you were to think of something in the past week or so that happened that bothered you, aggravated you, upset you, or whatever, do you have something that comes to mind?
I do.
Okay.
Do you want me to tell you what it is?
You don't need to you can just give it a name. Like, what's the name of it?
Overexposure.
Overexposure. Okay. And your mind knows exactly what overexposure means, right?
Right.
Good. I'm looking for my notepad, because I wanted to make a note of what you say. Oh, here it is. All right. So overexposure. So just give me I'm going to just ask for a little bit of information, because you want to understand how your mind works, right? You want to notice how you're creating what's not good about this. So when you think of overexposure, do you see an image? Do you feel a feeling? Do you tell yourself something? What do you do inside?
I tell myself that nobody wants to see my face on social media again. That's what I think.
And when you tell yourself that nobody wants to see your face on social media again, what happens inside you?
I have a sick feeling in my stomach.
All right.
I have a very negative, like almost like a sadness, like I want to cry type feeling.
Okay. Now, if this was a session, I would actually trace that back, that sick feeling and that sadness back through your timeline to where you experienced it in the past, because that would be your initial imprint. But because you're just tapping on yourself and I'm showing you that, I'm not going to do that. But that is one of the differences between working on yourself versus working with someone. So when you think of overexposure, how strong is it? First thought that comes to mind.
10.
It's a 10.
Plus.
And you know how it's a 10, right?
What do you mean?
You know how you know it's a 10?
How?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking you. Do you see the 10 in your mind? Do you
It's
just,
in my mind, it's in my body. It's just,
okay.
and it's, I mean, this is really first and foremost on me the last few days. So it's like something that's in my head right now.
Okay. Notice how you know it's in your head and it's a
Okay.
10. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to tap, right? And when you tap, I want you to switch the focus from overexposure, the 10, the things in your mind, to just the sensation of tapping. For this one, we're going to use 4 tapping points. And
Okay.
this is the beginning of the eyebrow,
Okay.
side of the eye,
Gotcha.
under the eye,
Yep.
and your collarbone.
Yep.
And that's where we're
Okay.
going to tap.
Okay.
Before we start using that, I want to help you set up something called the peace anchor, because that's the last part of the process. You squeeze your
Okay.
wrist, take a deep breath, and say peace. But first thing you want to do is think of a happy memory. I'm sure you've got lots of happy memories. What's an awesome happy memory that you can think of and feels good?
Cabin.
The cabin. Okay,
Mhm.
great. So close your eyes for a moment and just imagine you're at the cabin. Seeing it, hearing it, feeling it, just being there now. What happens inside you?
Everything feels lighter, and like I almost feel a smile coming to my mouth, and just
Good.
I breathe.
Perfect. So notice that. Notice how you feel lighter, the smile that's actually on your mouth now. And you can breathe. And now squeeze your wrist, feeling those good feelings. Squeeze your wrist, deep breath, and say peace.
Peace.
Good job. That feels better already, doesn't it?
Yes.
All
We don't
right.
need to tap. No, I'm just kidding.
So now think of overexposure, 0 to 10. How strong is it? First thought.
8.
Notice it's already changed. Tap with
Yep.
me. Feel your fingers. And you're just going to say, let it go.
Let it go. Say it
Feeling
out
your
loud.
fingers. Yeah, let it go. Side of your eye, let it go.
Let it go.
It's okay to let it go.
It's okay to let it go.
I release that story
I release that story
now.
now.
Good. Now squeeze your wrist. Take a deep breath. Say peace.
Peace.
Go back to the cabin. In your mind, just take yourself there. The smile's already on your face. You're already feeling lighter. Notice you
Mm-hmm.
can breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Squeeze your wrist. Another deep breath in and let it out and say peace.
Peace.
Good job. So now overexposure, how strong is it now? First thought.
5.
Notice how it's changing. It happens that fast. It's important to change your focus. And because I've heard time and time again, people don't know what to say, I'm going to show you something else that you can do. So tap, feel your fingers. Now look around your room and just call out things that you see.
Elephant. Computer. Painting.
Uh-huh.
Poster.
Good. That's it. Squeeze your
Keep
wrist.
going.
No,
Oh,
that was good. Say peace.
peace.
Say cabin.
Cabin.
Feel a smile. Nice deep breath happens automatically. And once again, say peace.
Peace.
Okay, now do it again. Overexposure. How strong is it now?
3.
Notice how quickly it's changing. And one of the things when you tap on yourself, you don't have to get it to come from a 10 to a 0. You can if you have time. But I consider if I just create a change, I've created momentum, I've gotten out of the inertia of the bad feelings, and then I can move on.
Yeah, I mean, what's coming up for me right now is just the focus. Why am I focusing there when
Right.
that makes me feel so bad? Like it feels really good to think about good things. So yeah.
And that's part of realizing how we're creating our experience. And you can use the tapping to create a better experience. One of the things I like to teach people is tapping for how I want to feel. Like I will just, and that's going to be one of the video resources I'd like to share with you. I have one, I have a video tapping for peace, and I'm sure you've already seen it because I know I've shared it in our little group. But I will just notice how I'm feeling, right? And I'll ask myself, how am I feeling right now? So it could be, depressed or annoyed or frustrated or resentful. And then once I've just kind of connected to where I'm at, then I say, and how do I want to feel instead? And I'll get an answer. It could be happy, it could be accomplished, it could be calm, peaceful, focused. That was a big one when this whole COVID thing started. I was like, I
all
need to
over the
feel
place.
focused, right?
Right.
And then I'll just say to myself, okay, well, 0 to 10, how happy am I now? Or let's use, what would you like to feel? Let's think about, when you think about overexposure, how do you want to feel instead?
Helpful.
Perfect. So 0 to 10, how helpful do you feel now?
4.
That's awesome.
No, wait. So I'm going the wrong way. I'm
10
feeling
would be you feel as helpful as possible, or 0, not at all.
Okay, so yeah, 4.
Good.
I don't
So
feel that
now
helpful.
this is easy. So now you're going to do the tapping again. We're switching tracks here, and
Okay.
say, I release anything that doesn't feel helpful.
I resent anything that doesn't feel helpful.
You said I release, right? Not
I
resent.
release.
Okay, good.
I
Don't
release.
resent that.
I don't want to resent that.
It's okay to let it go.
It's okay to let it go.
And I always give myself permission to have the change. So I say, I give myself permission to be helpful.
I give myself permission to be helpful.
I give myself permission to feel helpful.
I give myself permission to feel helpful.
And I let the rest go.
And I let the rest go.
And squeeze your wrist again. Deep breath and say peace.
Peace.
Good. And now you could go to your happy memory, or you could just go right back in and tap. I kind of alternate. Sometimes I'll do a couple tapping rounds and then happy memory. Sometimes I'll alternate. If I'm really feeling, jacked up, that's a technical term. I might go to the happy memory every time to try and help me change it. But so say it again, 0 to 10. How helpful do I feel now?
I feel a 6.
See how fast it changes?
Mm-hmm.
And you can, so even in a couple of tapping rounds, you could probably get that up to a 10, but it's that easy. I just release anything that isn't feeling helpful. I give myself permission to be helpful or to feel helpful. Peace. You can go to your happy memory. When you tap, focus on the sensation of tapping. If it feels really hard to do that, like you're really feeling like you're in your head, I will do tongue twisters, like one smart fellow, he felt smart, 2 smart fellows, they felt smart, 3 smart fellows, they all felt smart. I will do anything to take my mind off of it. I'll do my phone number backwards out loud. I'll ask myself, how do I feel? And I'll spell that backwards, like if it's resentment, okay, I'll T-N or M-E-N. It's really hard to do.
Yeah, really.
That breaks the state, right? It breaks the connection to what you don't want and allows you to step into focusing on what you do want.
Is there a reason why, like, for some reason, this one right here is just so good? Like, I don't know why.
Everyone has one that they like best.
Okay.
For me, it's this, but everyone has a tapping point that most agrees with them, and you can always use that anytime you want.
So there's no mistake. Oh, you went in the wrong order, or you started wrong.
I change the order just on purpose. Sometimes I'll start here and move up. I'll sometimes go in a circle. I just do things to change it up. You can't do it. There's no super secret special order. It's just energy meridians.
Or side or.
Right. No, they're just energy meridians. And let me give you one more. So does that one make sense? Like, could you do that on your own? Could you give yourself a thing that's bothering you and tap it down, from that 10 down in a couple of rounds? And could you say, I want to feel, a positive thing and tap it up, like helpful? Does that feel doable? Okay, good.
Yes.
Perfect. Now here's another one, because who has not felt anxiety?
I know I have.
Right, exactly. So this is another simple one that I give everyone. Now this one comes from, I've trained with many, many people. This one comes from Mike Mandel, and he teaches 3x3 tapping. So you tap the top of the head, which is kind of like the master switch for energy meridians. It's going to get all the ones in the body.
Okay.
3 minutes, 3 times a day.
Just doing this.
Yeah, just that one. 3 minutes, 3 times a day. This is to help with anxiety. And I've had people start this and they don't even need to take their anxiety meds. Like, I mean, I don't advocate stopping any meds. You continue what your doctor says, but I guess there's people that usually take something when they feel anxious and they haven't needed it because they haven't gotten anxious. So,
Right.
but it really helps. So you do it 3 minutes, 3 times a day. So think, morning, afternoon, evening. And now my arm gets tired and I end up switching arms, and
I
that's
know. I was
okay. It
gonna
doesn't
say,
make a difference, right?
you're
But
gonna build up your.
yeah, seriously, you build up your shoulders doing this. So that would be it. That's 3 by 3 tapping.
Okay.
So we've learned 3 things today. We've got set tapping, Steve Wells, Dr. David Lake,
The
faster
fingers.
EFT tapping, which is Robert Smith,
Okay.
and now this 3 by 3 tapping, which is Mike Mandel.
And this isn't some crazy thing that someone came up with. I mean, these are all scientifically proven ways to help,
Tapping
right?
is scientifically proven. There's a book, The Science of Tapping, or I think it's by Dr. Peter Stapleton, and I think it's The Science of Tapping, but I'm not sure exactly the title. It's sitting on my kitchen table though, because I've read it and I
And reread it. And...
I refer back to it. But yeah, tapping comes from something called thought field therapy, which was created by Dr. Roger Callahan. And he used complex algorithms. Maybe they're not that complex, but he used specific algorithms that would be like, if you have this, you use these tapping points, and if you have that, you use these tapping points. So it was kind of like you'd look up what you're experiencing, and then there'd be a specific tapping formula to follow.
Okay.
Dr. Gary Craig took his tapping program, and Dr. Gary Craig was an engineer, right? And so he just said, well, what if we just use all the tapping points all the time and get everything? And that's how emotional freedom technique was born. And then everyone else has kind of had their take on it. Like, the set tapping that came from just observing that the more you tap, literally the volume of tapping is equated to the amount of change you create. So they do continuous tapping. And Robert Smith combines NLP and faster EFT, and I mean, with EFT and be set free fast, and the understandings of trance, like how we are in bad trances and how to let them go.
There's so much available, and that's really the whole point of why I created the Friends in Grief and Growth group, was that you don't know what you don't know. And so back when I was newly grieving, I didn't know any of this. There wasn't the internet, so I wouldn't have had such quick access to it.
Right.
And I just didn't know. So all those years just kind of like limbo, numb, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And then to finally get a taste of some of these tools and realize, wow, like this can change your life. And it's going to be different for every person. Like even you coming through 3 different kinds of tapping, like one may resonate and one may not. Right. But, just exposing people to all these different tools that are out there until you find one that helps. And, something like this, that's just proven to help. It's worth a try, even though if you're sitting at your desk in your office, and you're anxious, sitting here, you may look a little crazy, but I mean, it's better than the alternative.
Right. And if I'm sitting if I'm in public and I don't want anyone to know I'm tapping, I'll do this. And, I've had my arm behind my back while talking to people that make me uncomfortable doing this. Wow. I can do it outside of camera view. I attend BNI meetings, which is Business Networking International. So, and public speaking is not my thing, right? So I'm always tapping under the camera as I give my 60-second commercial. Vice president of the group, as I have to give the vice president's report and all that stuff. Tapping. I'm always tapping.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
It's such a good thing to have in your toolbox, I mean, we all need whatever help we can get.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why I love this kind of time of life, just because I'm so open to it all. Once you find one thing that works, you just be so open to trying whatever can help you. Why live, in a state of anxiety or misery or whatever?
I agree.
Okay, I just want to look real quick and just make sure that that there's nobody, there were some people live on Facebook, and of course now I can't find it. I just want to make sure nobody is like asking questions before we let go. And if you have a question, please ask it right now, because there's a bit of a delay. And you know, also later, if some questions pop up from people watching the replay, I will be sure and ask you too.
I will be very happy to answer them.
Okay, so Jan Burdette said, very helpful. I like these techniques. And Lori Fortin said, this I can handle. Thank you.
Delightful. I'm so happy that it's helpful.
Really, because I mean, some things are very, like if it's complicated in our grief brain, we just can't.
That's why I picked the least complicated. My mantra is I can let this be easy, and I will find the easiest way to share something.
Yeah.
I just don't want complicated. Life's complicated enough already.
You can work your way up to the more complicated stuff, I guess, but like initially, just to have some relief and a release.
It doesn't need to be complicated to create change, and consistency works more than complicated anyway.
Yeah. So if somebody, we will post all this, but if somebody's watching and they want to know like really how to get in touch with you right away, or anything they need to know, what would they do to contact you?
I have a website, which is fasterchanges.com.
Okay. That's easy.
Yeah, that's very easy. And on there, like front and center, when you go to my website, you'll see set up a free strategy session, and that's it. It takes you to Acuity, and it's just a conversation with me on Zoom. You get to ask your questions, and I'll spend a little time tapping with someone to, spend about 15 minutes talking about what the issue is, and about 15 minutes tapping. And then if someone wants to work with me, I'll give a recommendation of what I think would be useful sessions wise, Okay.
So whether the tapping part of this resonated regarding emotions and anxiety, or the emotional eating, like they can talk to you about all of that in your session, right?
And I have a free demo of January's emotional eating webinar that is on my Vimeo page. So I'll give you that link so that you can post it. And I have several tapping videos that people can tap along with. In particular, there's a Ho'oponopono video. I call it a bedtime mantra, but this is one of the things I do most to help me navigate grief. It doesn't directly go into the grief memories. It is a releasing and soothing tapping ritual that just helps me feel so much peace after I do it. And that one, like I told you, my mom passed on March 1st, and that was really, really, truly, genuinely hard for me. And I had to use every tool in my toolkit to navigate that situation. And that was one of my go-to things. So that video I would love to share, that everyone can just tap along with. And it says bedtime, and I did it mostly at bedtime, but you could do it any time of day.
Okay. That sounds great. I appreciate any of these resources that we can give to our moms. And I will make sure that they know how to get in touch with you. Thank you so much for doing this. That was great. My dog's crying.
Pleasure.
Can you hear him? He's crying.
Well, I heard it. I thought it was a bark, but
he's like asleep and crying. So he needs to do some tapping. Okay. Thank you, Nicola. I appreciate it so much. Take care, everybody.
Have a great day, everyone.